soccer is growing in the US, right? There are different ways for people to experience the game, whether it's through playing the game in person or coaching or reffing or watching the game on TV or playing video games. So US Soccer is a nonprofit. I think that's something that people don't always know. And so we have two tiers. We have the first set of tiers, which goes standard to VIP, I believe. That is the premium tier, or that's the tier for fans primarily. Like I'm going to a game and I'm just experiencing this fan moment, right? And I want to contribute to the growth of the sport. And then we have the Circle Insider tiers, which are more for those who have the ability to make a more in-depth investment into the federation. Let's see Poland and USA in the finals for the World Cup.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are going to be talking about fan engagement, and we have an awesome guest today, Nicole Kusi from US Soccer. So I need to clarify that US Soccer, officially known as the United States Soccer Federation, is the central governing body for the sport of soccer, which in Europe is called football. So, this is interesting that we have both soccer and football, but still this is the same sport. And at least in Europe, it is the biggest sport out there.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's really funny. I was actually born in London, and so my first gut reaction is to also call it football as well. So it's taken me a bit of learning to call it soccer, even though I was raised here. I think whenever I'm referencing the game on TV, it's typically football, and my family lives in Ghana as well, so that's also a part of it. So there's some learning that I had to do here as well.
Absolutely. I can imagine that it must have been like so. No, it's not so easy actually to just, deal with it. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really, interested in how you actually approach the design. This is great because I believe that you are, let's say, both on the product and technical side of fan engagement design, and you also understand the business side of it, right?
Correct.
So
yeah.
If you could just tell us a bit about your role at US Soccer.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been at US Soccer for a little over almost 4 years now, actually. I got hired right before the Qatar World Cup. And so I'm approaching my fourth year, and it's kind of cool to see my journey from men's World Cup to men's World Cup. This moment of the World Cup coming to the States is something that everyone's been working towards for at least the past 3.5 years that I've been here. So it's really cool. US Soccer is different from other sports teams, I would say, in the US, where other teams, they have like localized teams to their city, to their town. So if you take like the Chicago Bears, for example, right? How they market is entirely local, right? And for us, we have a unique challenge where we have to speak to a broader audience. We have to talk to fans from California all the way to Maine, right? And for us, loyalty is the one way that we were able to approach this gap. It's not typical that everyone will be able to see the men's or the women's or even a youth game or ENT. It's not typical that they would see a game near them, right? We only play like a handful of games every year. And so how we decided to connect the fandom is through this loyalty experience. And we try to see it as like our season ticket holders, right? But primarily because there isn't an opportunity for everyone to get those like in-person match day experiences, we really, really lean on digital experiences. And so my job as the director of product is to build the tools in which the loyalty experiences lives on. But again, to your point, like I've been here for 4 years. And so it's really hard to shape the product without understanding the business. And so the loyalty product is like something that I consider every day. And then like the tools in which the loyalty product lives in is a part of my job. So I do that primarily. And then there's some other things that I work on at the Federation as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for clarifying a bit, because for the most part, I try to understand the difference between, let's say, a customer loyalty and fan engagement. It is different, obviously, because, in sport, there is like a different relationship between the fans and the club than like, customers and the brand. But this is very interesting because as far as I understand it, US soccer is actually larger than a single local club. So I would imagine that your goal is also to actually make sure that the sport is there, like, to promote the sport, the discipline, right? And to make sure that soccer is getting more and more popular in the States. Am I getting it right?
Correct. Yeah. Soccer is growing in the US, right? There are different ways for people to experience the game, whether it's through playing the game in person or coaching or reffing or watching the game on TV or playing video games. I mean, I don't know how recent the data is, but there's like a common fact. I think that the MLS did the study, don't quote me, but I think it's them, where like the number one way that Americans get into soccer in the US is through playing it's now EAFC, but FIFA, like the game. Um, and we've seen streamers like I Show Speed, on Twitch, like he grew his fandom learning the rules of football or soccer on Twitch, right? And now he's like one of the biggest streamers like in the world. And he's this kid from Ohio that was just learning about soccer online. And so we're seeing an appetite for soccer continue to grow. And so it really is about like tapping into this moment. But to your point, like how people experience soccer in New York City, where I'm located, is different from how people might experience soccer in like Dallas, Texas, right? And so it's trying to figure out, I mean, the US is so big, it's trying to figure out how we can capture the attention of all of these audiences, especially in this moment, because this moment won't come again, it won't happen again so quickly,
Yeah, of
um,
course.
and so capturing this moment and trying to figure out how we can really draw people to the game.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So definitely you have quite a lot of learnings, because this is also something interesting that once you actually decide to build this fun engagement program, you get access to a lot of data. So then, you actually have this view. Very often when I talk to clubs in Europe here, we are talking about, this 360 view of a fun, but it is local, as you said. So, there are different, let's say, revenue streams that the program is tied to. At the center, there would be the stadium, obviously, and like making sure that the majority of fans are actually coming to the stadium. Then we have online revenue, right? Merchandise, like the e-commerce. And obviously, yeah, like you said, like the internet is becoming more and more visible, and especially when it comes to the younger audience, very often, like, yeah, kids would play on Roblox, then just like move through different games, and FIFA for sure would be the most important title here. So this is interesting because in Europe, there is this tendency, or at least the goal, of creating this omni-channel experience for a fan. I wanted to ask you, actually, what is your approach towards that? Like, how do you, because obviously your scale is so much bigger. So what would be, let's say, the most prominent, like, revenue streams that you try to design the program for?
That's a good question. I think for me, like the way that I think depending on who you ask, everyone has a different opinion as to how to do this because it is a very complicated question, right? I think for me, when I'm thinking about how to get the most engagement out of fans, I like to meet people where they are, right? Instead of trying to draw people somewhere else, which is really hard, especially in the US, everyone's attention is so fragmented. I'm sure the same in Europe. Trying to draw people to the website, to TikTok, to like, that's really tough to do. And so why not go where people are currently living and so are currently operating? And so when I'm thinking about fan engagement experiences, I'm thinking about it that way. So if we know that we are trying to attract, let's say, this is a good example, like youth, right? Right now, we have a difficult time, like everyone else, trying to reach very young audiences, right? They're just very. It's hard to. They don't watch Saturday morning cartoons anymore. Those commercials aren't really working. Like, how are we attracting those audiences? And so we actually work with FIFA and the DFB in Roblox. And the next step from there is to see how we can integrate like open loyalty or like the fan engagement aspect into Roblox, right? So I think it's the ICC, I'm forgetting what they're called, but the Cricket League, they did this last year in Roblox and they connected their Roblox experience to their real life loyalty experience and they saw incremental value or very huge numbers in that way. Um, that is something that we're looking to mimic, especially as we're heading into the World Cup. So when we're thinking about like younger audiences that we're not really capturing on Instagram, on TikTok, we're trying to like play in Snapchat, but there's still so much to learn there. We know the numbers are in Roblox. We have the space there. So it's more so about translating that like in Roblox behavior to like IRL experiences. And I'm hoping to like leverage open loyalty in that use case. And that would be a really cool revenue experience for us too.
Gotcha. So you actually try to reach out to people in the digital space because, as you've said, this is where the majority of us are now. And especially when it comes to younger audiences, this is where the journey starts. And then making sure that they understand that they could, like, join the live game somewhere close nearby, right? So actually making it personalized. Once they actually understand, what there is to see, to experience.
Absolutely. And we have to think about, and we're still ideating on what this will look like, but within our own loyalty program, like we have to see, is there even anything for a value for younger audience? I mean, I think the loyalty programs touch at 13, but from 13 to 16, 17, 18, that's a very different demographic than our average audience. And so we have to think about like, what are we offering? Like, yeah, we might be able to pull them from Roblox and into the space, but then once they get here, how do we make them stay? Right? Like, what is that unique experience that speaks to a 15-year-old versus something that would speak to someone in like their 40s or 50s?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, this is a challenge for sure. That you do have, like, when we think about fans, demographics are, this is the whole spectrum. So everyone is there. Cool. I wanted to ask about particular key performance indicators, especially for those of the members of the audience who are interested in designing a program, are thinking about, planning and measuring the success of a program. So when it comes to your program, how do you measure the performance? What would be the key performance indicators that you focus on?
Yeah, so for us, we're really evaluating churn, right? So once people get into the program, are they staying? And if they're not staying, why? We're taking a look at like the standard things, like will people upgrade? So our program has paid tiers and free tiers, and there's different levels within the paid tiers. Um, are people choosing to upgrade? What are those numbers looking like? And if they're not, again, why? And then even more so on the technical side, oh, I guess back on like the program, redemptions, right? So people can be accruing points, but if they never spend it, like that's not the point of the program, right? And so, are there items for redemption? Are there experiences that people actually want to redeem for? Because otherwise, then you just have a stagnant user base, right? You might have people that come into the door, but if they don't really do anything, is that a successful program? I would say no, right? So we're looking at those metrics on the program side, and then on the technical side, we're looking at how easy it is for people to do these things, right? So how many clicks does it take for someone to be able to upgrade? How many clicks does it take for someone to be able to redeem? Are there ways that we can get more efficient with those numbers? And then we are pretty lucky that we have a fan base that loves to tell us their opinions. And so we will just do surveys and interview our insiders, and we will ask them, like, is this working? Is it not working? Sometimes we put different like user mocks or like designer mocks in front of them for like the app or the website and just ask their opinions on what they would prefer. And they're more than willing to be involved in soccer. As you know, it's a team sport. And so they feel like they're a part of the team when they get to give this feedback to this program. Um, and so that's kind of how we shape the success of it. Some things work, some things don't work. But when things don't work, we really do try to make an effort to reevaluate why those things aren't working and to fix those problems so that we can iterate again and be successful the next time.
Sure. Yeah, awesome. First of all, congratulations on a, well-designed process, because if you can reach out to fans directly, this is the way to go. But on the other hand, what you said is absolutely spot on, that this is another difference between, let's say, a loyal customer and a fan, because fans understand the idea of, being a team, and they usually want to help out if there is like any opportunity to share feedback or maybe do something or promote. um, there is a high chance that you will have this segment of active fans who are just willing to be part of a team.
Yeah, and I feel like in the world of soccer or football, like the USA is it's still a bit of an underdog, not for women's, I won't speak for women's, but for the men's side for sure, right? And so I think when you're rooting for a team that's viewed as like the underdog, there's a bit of like an all hands in approach of getting the team to where it needs to be. And so the fans are definitely like the outskirts of the team, like they are a part of our umbrella. And so from every touch point that we have, um, getting them more involved in our process is something that I think is really special. And I don't typically see that in other industries that I've worked in with loyalty.
Sure. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So nice to hear that. Um, I wanted to get back to the US Soccer Insider. So, talk about the design, about the program itself, because it is very unique, at least, to me, when I look at it from this European perspective, it definitely looks different and it looks really interesting. So, how do you approach, the program design? Because you've already said that the scale is big, the challenge is pretty, ambitious. So how do you approach the program design so that it actually, stimulates and just helps you reach your goals?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we do really well is designing the program around match day experiences. And so we tend to focus on when we get people into the games, right? Let's say they buy a ticket. Once they buy a ticket and they're an insider, how is their experience different from someone that isn't an insider, right? Because that's how we can drive people to sign up to this program. And so typically, I would say the majority of our benefits are focused around that, right? I think that makes sense as we're leading into the World Cup and we're trying to build this like home base of energy. Like, how do we curate these moments that even if we aren't, because we're not responsible for hosting the World Cup games, but even if our fans are going to these World Cup games, like, how do they stand out amongst other fan groups? At different games or even within the US, right? We want the insiders to feel like a very exclusive moment that people want to be a part of. I think after the World Cup, though, um, depending on what happens with the Women's World Cup, I think we will start to shift on thinking about like how do we feel not a void, but some of the opportunities from the digital experience, right? So if you don't go to a game, how do you still feel connected to this team? Like what are some ways that we can expand the experience to cover that domain, right? Like I'm thinking about, is there something that we can do with broadcasting? Like if you're watching the game at home, you can earn points and earn like or check in from home, or can you um, submit guesses about how players will perform or the score of the game? Like how can we gamify this experience for those folks that are at home? That I think will be the next focus. But I think for now, the way that we curate the program is to really focus on people who are going to the games to really build this like in-house fandom that feels unique to other experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. Well, for sure. I've I've seen similar, let's say, concept or idea in the European football clubs that first, like, they try to focus on the match experience and make sure that, they can basically max it out and then also like come up with different, gamified challenges within the stadium. And then it just like grows bigger and bigger because then obviously, as you've said, like not everyone is able to join a particular game. Some of us are not able to be at the stadium at all, but still we have so many opportunities to get this, at least similar excitement from the stadium to your own home. And there is a lot of opportunity there. So
For sure. The Europeans have really figured this out. And I think when we're talking about that like homegrown fandom, it's kind of similar to like the NFL here. Like the NFL is really, really good at that. They have the advantage of having like local teams. And so I think that kind of creates a bit of like a what's the word there? But it creates like this like unit, this like family around like a local team versus another local team, right? And so like Europe has that, let's say the Premier League or whatever, they have that experience that's kind of similar to the NFL. I think for us, we're doing something that feels a little different. And so I'm really curious about like other federations that I think have really big fandoms. I'm looking at the DFB, I'm looking at uh, the Argentinians, the Brazilians. I mean, it helps that they've won so many things, and hopefully we'll get there as well. But even for like other nations, like I'm from Ghana, like we are so loyal to our soccer team and we haven't won anything that's really that big. But
I'm
we're very
Polish,
loyal
and
to it.
I can relate. I can relate because for some
Yeah.
reason, in Poland, football has been definitely the most popular sport. But when we think about the national team or like winning a European or world tournament, there was like one moment somewhere in the 80s where we were like the third, and that is still, let's say, the most prominent moment. But yeah, people are loyal, like absolutely. It is a holiday when the Polish national team is playing. So
Oh yeah. Well, I
for
was in
sure, I get you.
I lived in Chicago for 10 years. There's a huge Polish community in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
And I believe the last World Cup was it Qatar, was it Poland versus like Mexico or something? And there's also a huge Mexican population in Chicago as well. And I have never seen people come out to support a team like that. It was a very fun moment. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. So I can relate to that. I absolutely get the concept. Well, this is also awesome when you work in actually sports and fun engagement, because I've heard an interesting insight that um, let's say that you are a retailer, you you might be a bit of like afraid of competition that is trying to build a similar program, and actually the let's say there might be a situation where one retailer is after the customers of the other one, right? But here in sports, it doesn't really apply, because once you have your favorite team, you basically stay with this team till the very end. Well, maybe with some, small fragment of people who are maybe disappointed or whatever. But still, mostly this is like you just pick or choose your team and you stay with this team. So there is a really cool, let's say, relationship between people working in sports, because they are not afraid of sharing the insights. They are not afraid of sharing their own experiences, and basically just making sure that whatever, like every sport gets the community growing, right? And it's like a win-win for everyone. So I wanted to ask you, like, is it true, or is it true in your case that you actually have access to other sport fun engagement professionals, and then you exchange the ideas around how to build communities, how to make sure that you implement gamification in a proper way, so on and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the world of sports, yes, it's competitive, but on the people behind the scenes, like the people who work at the businesses, we're all trying to learn from one another on how to do this, right? Like we can't control for the outcome that happens on the field. That is not my pay grade. But my job is to figure out how we create the best experience for fans, whether we win or lose, whether it's sunny or it's rainy. And my job is to also make sure that the products that we are putting out into this world are working, right? And everyone across the sports industry has the same feeling. So it isn't like one of my really good friends works for the MLS. Like we talk a lot about like, okay, like what are you guys doing to solve this problem? How can we help? And then like vice versa, you know. There I've talked to people in the NWSL, the NBA, like there's some folks that I know at the NFL now. The sports community, at least like on the corporate side, is pretty small. And so like people float amongst different industries and they maintain relationships. And so we're all trying to do the same thing, which is create a really fun experience for our fans, especially when you're talking about fan engagement and loyalty. Um, and so that's something that is unique here. I feel like other places, to your point, when I worked in streaming, like that was a very competitive space, and there's no way I can get on the phone and call Netflix and say, "Hey, how did you
Right,
guys do
yeah,
this thing?"
exactly.
um, um, so it is really nice to have this environment for sure.
Sure, exactly. Because like in sports, there is you like this element of canceling the subscription of one streaming service and then switching to the other. Yeah, so sure. Awesome. Cool. So then I wanted to ask about one interesting thing. I mean, it is one of the many interesting things in the program itself. But when I was just browsing through and, like taking a look at the US Soccer Insider, I saw that you have insider tiers and you also have circle insider tiers. So this is interesting because this is like two-tier structure. So at least from the point of view of a program design, what was the reason for it? How did you come up with it? What does it do?
So it's always a work in progress. We're always reevaluating if we set this up the right way. But the way that it's meant to work is, so US Soccer is a nonprofit. I think that's something that people don't always know. Um, and so we have two tiers. We have the first set of tiers, which goes standard to VIP, I believe. That is the premium tier, or that's the tier for fans primarily, like I'm going to a game and I'm just experiencing this fan moment, right? And I want to contribute to the growth of the sport. And then we have the Circle Insider tiers, which are more for those who have the ability to make a more in-depth investment into the federation. And we typically consider those our donor tiers. So we reference those as donors, and they have a slightly different experience in the loyalty program. It's a very, I would say, like white glove experience. They have, account managers that they speak to. They have separate, depending on how, I'm forgetting like the top of the tier for that, but depending on how far up the tier you go, you have one-on-one connections with like different folks in the federation, very unique experiences during games, during the World Cup. Um, like a lot of hospitality is built into that, just because of the larger investment. And so there are different experiences, but honestly, like we consider them, they're all fans. It's just more so about like how much more you can invest into the program to support what we're doing here.
Sure. Oh, and that absolutely makes sense from a not-for-profit organization point of view. So this is perfect. Thank you. Because for me, it was really cool to see that you have different tiers, but also like you have different groups of tiers, right? Segments of tiers. So now I understand what's going on, and it
Yeah.
absolutely makes sense.
And people can flow in between. They can go from the fan engagement tier to the circle tiers, the circle tiers to the fan engagement tiers. They can go back to free. Like we don't block anything in terms of how users want to migrate in between the tiers. I think it just, depending on how much the donation is, there's a different experience that you have with the federation. So that's why we have it split up like that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this is great because absolutely for every soccer or football fan out there, the value is there. So you automatically see the reason why you would like to participate, right, for a certain extent and just, contribute to a particular experience. But I get it that it shouldn't be, let's say, designed for locking people in one tier, right? But you basically can experience different things at different points in your fan journey, and that's cool. That's absolutely cool. I wanted to ask about a bit of technology related questions. So. For a lot of people who are thinking about designing a fun engagement program, they think about certain tools or technology that should be that they need to invest in or check in order to create something that is working. What is your take on that? Like, how would you approach that? If you could give us a few tips on how to arrange a proper tech stack so that you can actually start creating a program that really works.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good question. I think for us, what we find successful is integrating open loyalty to some of our other products that support it. So we have like a payment platform that people use to actually pay for the products. So that actually, I feel like our tiers, if we had the time to redo it, I think we would have built the tiers in open loyalty, but we built the tiers in this payment platform because that's where people buy the products. And so open loyalty really just renders, like it creates the earning events, it tracks them, it tracks the redemptions, it does all of that. But the actual purchasing of a tier happens somewhere else. So we have that product that does that. And then the other really big thing is communicating to these users. And so we have a platform that manages email communication, push notifications, and soon SMS. And we leverage that in conjunction with loyalty. So I think those are the two things you absolutely must need. I don't think everyone would have to deal with, these users then buying merch and buying tickets. And, we have different platforms that do that for us. But like those two areas are things that make a lot of sense, somewhere to process payments and then somewhere to actually like communicate to these users. I don't know though, like does Open Loyalty support those two areas, like payments and email communication?
I
Or
mean, it might be integrated. So this is something that, as you are suggesting, that basically loyalty engine would be one of the many components in your stack, but it absolutely makes sense to get a, let's say, ticketing platform, then maybe CRM, but that might be at some point, as you're suggesting, that you probably don't do a lot of segmentation from the very, like, at first. So am I getting it right that it's okay to start, let's say, with an MVP version where actually, people can, let's say, choose the tier or like enroll into the program, choose their tier, right? And then basically have some, perks related to that. And obviously, as you said, this element of communications where you actually inform people like, hey, this is available, you can do this, like, come here, blah, blah, blah. So these three elements should actually make a working
yeah,
MVP, right?
yeah, I think so. I didn't want to use, I wasn't sure if the acronyms are the same in Europe, but yes, like a CRM tool is is what you would use. We also have like I think eventually you want to get like a CDP, something like a customer data platform, like something to manage the data and like blend all these worlds together. But when we first started, we didn't really have that. We just had primarily like somewhere where people could pay and buy the tiers, and then somewhere where we could communicate to the people and say, hey, this is how we're going to market to these users to encourage them to do certain behaviors. Now we're at a place where our data is so much more sophisticated that we need something to manage all this data that's coming in, so that we can make assumptions and analyze and really be more specific about how we're creating our audiences and our segments. And so now we do have like a CDB tool that helps us do that. But I think that from the very beginning, it probably isn't necessary. I think it's more so about like developing the value proposition of the program should be the most important thing. Like it doesn't really matter how fancy your technology is. You can get the most like top shelf solution for payments, for CRM, for CDP, but if the program itself isn't valuable, then you're not going to get any motion. And so I would actually recommend like finding, if you need like a product to help with A/B testing for user research. I think that's probably more of an important investment to make sure you feel like you have a really solid program before you start like adding so much tech stack, or so much technology to your tech stack.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. So when I landed on a website and I saw the insider tiers, like, I automatically knew that, okay, I know where I fit into, like, which segment is the right type for me, what would I like to be a member of. And the technology is something that obviously is important at some point, but if you don't see the value straight away, you won't download the app and you won't sign up as a member, right?
Absolutely. And I think that like curating your tiers, like I think the most important thing that you could do is to decide what benefits go in what tiers, right? And so the more research you do, and if you're limited to budget like we are from the nonprofit perspective, I think seeing what other programs exist and what they do really well is a really good way to start thinking about how you should structure yours. And so there's a lot of different loyalty systems out there. Some that we all are very familiar with, like Starbucks has a fantastic one. I'm trying to think of international brands. Booths in the
Yeah, 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 yeah.
UK, you
Sure.
know? Um, like, I think that thinking about what loyalty experience Spotify, like, thinking about what loyalty experiences you actually use in your day-to-day and how they structure their programs should give you enough of a foundation to start thinking about how to do yours. I don't think there's any need at this point to reinvent the wheel. I think it's more so just, like, looking around you and seeing how people who have the budget to do the research, how they're doing their work, and then thinking about how you can maybe shape that to match what you're trying to do here. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Like the more programs I see, the more, let's say, patterns I recognize. And I believe that also from a perspective of a user, of a potential customer or a potential fan, I tend to stick with things that I'm familiar with. So it's even sometimes recommended, this is something that we have at least advised during the expert loyalty sessions, that maybe it's a good idea to, build your MVP with something that is basically well known and people are familiar with. And once you actually learn how to get this meaningful feedback and you get the data, then you can start iterating, experimenting, and perhaps working on your individual custom twist. But for starters, as you said, probably it's a good idea to see how the successful brands are doing it and then choose the elements that you like most.
And also like knowing your audience too, like what do they have the patience for? Like I think some of the more complicated loyalty experiences are like credit cards. I'm like, those are so nuanced, but like they know their audience, like those people who are in that like financial sector who are nerds about that, they will focus on that, right? Versus like if I was trying to build a loyalty program that resembles credit cards, but in sports, people would be like, this is too complicated, right? And so, like, knowing what your audience, who your audience is, I think is really important because people really don't have time to sit and decode your site to figure out like how do they earn a point and what can they redeem. I think keeping it as straightforward as possible is the key.
Oh, this is such a great insight, because for sure, when I think about a fan, that's probably a person that would like to show emotions, be there when you need them, engage in some activity. But yeah, if you just send them some legal documents that are 20 pages long, so not really, not I wouldn't imagine that a lot of people would actually complete that reading through.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so you've briefly mentioned the tech stack. Thank you so much for that. So we know that it's about making sure that people can sign up, they can buy, they can make a purchase. Also that you are able to send the communications, and then there was this element of open loyalty, like the loyalty engine. So for those of us, those of you actually who are not familiar with a concept of a loyalty engine, what does it do? If you could just explain briefly, what does it help you with at designing or implementing US Soccer Insider?
Yeah, for sure. So for us, the way that we use it is that it is the platform where we create the earning events. And so that is basically the behavior that you are awarding a user for. So I'll give an example. Purchasing tickets. If you purchase tickets to a US soccer game, you earn X amount of points, right? That's an earning event. So it tracks that's where we build all of our earning events. That is where we see which earning events are the most successful. We also set up our redemptions there as well. So if you redeem 2,000 points, you get a scarf. We use the loyalty platform for that as well. Recently, you guys, we migrated to the 5.0, 5 dot whatever version, and now we have way more in-depth analytics. So that was my biggest struggle with the previous version. It was really hard to see how people were interacting with the program. But with that release, we really do have in-depth analytics about which campaigns are successful, which rewards are successful. And that's really, really helpful as well. I do believe you can build your tiers out there, but we just don't use that functionality. But I have seen where you could do that. And the thing that we're working on next is thinking about referrals. So how do I know that we can build referrals, but what do we award for referrals? So we're thinking about that and how we can get more people into the program through the experience of referrals. But primarily what it allows us to do is track campaigns, build campaigns, or not campaigns is wrong. Well, I know it's campaigns and open loyalty, but build earning events and redemptions are the two key things that we use it for. It's our one-stop shop for the ledger of loyalty, what's coming in, what's going out. And so whenever we have a user issue, right, and they're not seeing their points appear on their account for some reason, open loyalty is always the first place that we go. to see if the points even registered in the system, right? If it did register and it's not surfacing on their account, that means that something broke in the communication from Open Loyalty to our products. But if it's not even in the system, that means that the system did not pick up on the earning event. And so maybe there was an error in the code, or there's user error that happened. We have this issue right now with this experience called caps. And essentially, it is users earn a cap, I guess, not a real cap, but like a point for going to a game. And the way that we built the logic requires so much human interaction. There were so many clicks for this to occur that almost everyone gets it wrong. And it's like it's one earning event that we've completely messed up, right? And so now that we know that we are getting so much feedback from users about their inability to earn caps, we have to go back and think through, okay, we inherited this logic from another team like 4 years ago. And so now we're looking at it and we're like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. The users are correct. And so now we're thinking about how we can simplify that experience by leveraging open loyalty versus whatever is happening right now, which is it's not passing through OL, it's passing through the app directly. That's really confusing for our fans.
Yeah, sure, I can imagine. Thank you so much for clarifying, because now I understand. At the very beginning of our conversation, you've mentioned that you are actually looking at how easy it is to perform an action, and you actually follow like the number of clicks that is necessary to do something. And now I get it even more, that because obviously it makes sense from a design point of view to make things like, easier for the user. But right now I can see that it is also a way to make sure that your design is elegant, which means that you have the everything that is necessary, but with a minimum effort. So this is great. And you've also mentioned a very important thing, that technology is obviously important because it allows to make things happen, but without a proper design, it's not going to be so easy to use it, or
No,
sometimes
it's
it's going
not.
to be
It's
even
not. It's
impossible.
not. And we've all experienced that. Like we've all tried to do something. Like I tried to buy airplane tickets the other day, and I could not get past like the email verification screen. Like I couldn't get past it. And so I was like, never mind. I'll just create an account as a guest and just like not create an account. Like I would just bypass this and become a guest and not create an account. And so we've all experienced like frustrations, or there's like a streaming platform that we have here where you can't change your email. You have to call them and it's so convoluted. And so in a moment, like sports are meant to be fun. It's not your medical insurance. It's not setting up for a course for school. Like it's meant to be a really fun thing. And we want our technology and our loyalty experience to feel fun as well. And so if we bog it down with so many unnecessary steps or convoluted earning events, like that doesn't match the moment, right? You can kind of get away with that maybe in finance, maybe in other areas where people are like slow, not slow, but like they're taking their time to like solve a problem. But people with like in the sports space, they want to watch the game. They want to get their free scarf, and that's about it. It's not that serious. And so we shouldn't develop technology that's so serious, in my opinion.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you on that. That maybe in those like industries that you've mentioned, yeah, it might be even uh, more difficult by design. So you actually are in a way forced to read through something, right? It is designed so that you actually take your time and make sure that you fully understand the consequences of whatever you are agreeing for or subscribing for. That's for sure. But yeah, when we think about sports, this is engagement, this is fun, this is like, celebrating. This is probably also about like inviting your friends over, or maybe like taking your friends and going with them to the match, ideally. So yes, the
And
design.
we're trying to extend that to areas that are not just like the person that goes to the game. Like we have coaches, we have referees, we have people that like work in the space, right? Like how can we make that more fun? Like I mean, I'm sure, I don't know how Europe has set their stuff up, but I'm sure it's way more advanced than where we're at right now, but we're trying to catch up to where we should be. And it's like, how can we make that more exciting, right? Like people are coaching and roughing out of passion, not because the jobs pay really well, you know? So like, how can we make sure the technology that they have is fun, but also we can reward them for their loyalty, right? They don't have to do this. They don't have to coach on the weekends to 5-year-olds. Like, how can we make sure that we include them in the loyalty experience, which is where we're at right now. We're trying to expand the loyalty experience to coaches, to refs, and then eventually even players themselves for participating in soccer in the US.
Perfect. Okay, so this is great because this is like even like the bigger goal. Like you have this sense of doing something big, like for the sport, for the communities, actually for people. Yeah, like maybe leaving the screen for a moment, like not being in front of a screen, but actually going play and like interacting. So absolutely, absolutely, it's definitely worth the effort. Um, okay. When I was like preparing for our meeting today, I was thinking like definitely I need to ask you for something that might be interesting from the point of view of data. Very often, like when we think about case studies, this is very often like the most prominent part where actually like people want to see what is actually the result of a well-structured program and how does it influence the business. Is there any would there be any particular maybe numbers that you could share with us, something that might be in a way inspiration to the community, like, well, it's worth it, it's actually like designing a fun engagement program makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, not only is it just fun for the user because you're gamifying an experience that otherwise would be gamified, but I think you can get really good at predicting user behavior, right? So if you know how much people are engaging with the program, you can kind of tell who is the more engaging fan versus like the fan that's less engagement, and then you can target those users for certain behaviors. And so I don't have hard numbers for how successful this was, but I do know that open loyalty was used for a game last year when we're trying to figure out we had built prediction models around like how likely people were going to purchase a ticket to a game in, like, I think it was Nashville or something. And we used open loyalty to figure out who are our most engaged fans. And then we built audience segmentation around those fans that were in Nashville. And we only targeted those folks for ticket sales. And we actually sold out the stadium. And
Wow.
that does not always happen.
Yeah, yeah.
um, and
I
so
mean, basically, this is like the holy grail very often, for those like this type of programs and selling out the stadium. That would
Yeah,
be
it was a stadium that was underperforming, and we just couldn't figure out how to get more people. We had done like very traditional marketing, like billboards and posters and social media, and just like casting a very wide net. And we weren't really able to capture the audience's attention to purchase tickets. And so I think our data scientist was like, let's actually just look at open loyalty and see like who are our most engaged fans in terms of who was actually participating in loyalty experience in Nashville. And we built some kind of prediction. I mean, I didn't do it. She built a prediction model and leveraged and used that information to give to the ticketing team for their marketing communication. And those last couple thousand seats that we couldn't sell sold. And so I think it's about doing more things like that. It doesn't work all the time. I'm sure we tried it since and it hasn't always worked, but like being able to get more efficient and thinking about the engagement of the user, I think is really interesting. Again, like the people that are participating in loyalty are probably people that are more willing to do other things outside of loyalty. And so paying more close attention to those individuals, I think is really key when it comes to trying to get people to do things that you want them to do for your business.
definitely. Thank you. And obviously, congratulations on selling out the stadium, and kudos to the data scientist, because, that was a really well thought and well executed idea. So that's fantastic. Okay, so I just have like one question left. If you were to advise another sports organizations on launching a fun engagement program, what is the single most important lesson that you learned about balancing fun experience and business goals?
Oh, I would say when it comes to loyalty, focus on what the users want first, and I think you'll meet your business goals second. I think if you structure your loyalty experience over the business goals solely, then you won't have as many people engaged in the program. I think it's really, really important to listen to what the fans are looking for out of a program because that drives the business goals from the program. And in whatever way you can speak directly to prospective fans or current fans about why they would join, what they enjoy about the program, why they left, what they don't like all those things are really important in shaping a program, right? No two programs are exactly the same. What Starbucks does is completely different from what we do, which is different from what uh hopefully you guys have Sephora, what Sephora does,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah, we
know.
do.
um, and so it's good to get inspiration from other industries. I think that's one thing that people should do more in sports is not just look at sports, but look at other industries, but also like it's really important to listen to the fans because although fans can be really intense and really passionate, I feel like sometimes people kind of drown out what fans are saying because when so many people are screaming at you, it's hard to discern what the message is. But I think if you give people the means to communicate clearly with you, you can really structure a program that's worthwhile.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. That's so important actually, because also like as you've mentioned before, in sports you actually have this privilege of actually having those a lot of people who want to speak to you, they want to share feedback, they want to do that. So the opportunity is there. All you need to do is actually make sure that you design a proper process. And also, yeah, as you've mentioned, sometimes you need to be very careful when it comes to like creating those situations where fans are actually where it's easier for them to convey the right message, the right meaning, the right valuable information.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess one last thing that we've learned so much is customer service. You cannot forget the feedback loop, right? So I think so much so people are really concerned or focusing on how we reach out to fans. And to my similar point, it's how do fans reach back to you, not just on like, oh, I like this program, I don't like this program. It's, hey, I have a question. How can I ask you guys this question? I think that is so key in creating a loyalty experience that's really fruitful is being able to support questions, right? From people who want to stay in the program. So customer service, if I was thinking about the tech stack or like the things that you need to supplement the program, that's a huge, huge one. Don't let customer service go quiet for too long. Make sure you have a solution for that.
Uh-huh. Perfect. Thank you. I'm pretty sure that you've shared a lot of inspiring information. There is a lot of things that you have added to our community. Thank you so much for
Of
joining us.
course.
It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure. Obviously, I'm keeping my fingers crossed for U.S. soccer as a sport, soccer, football.
Let's see
So
Poland and USA in the finals for the World Cup.
absolutely, I'll be cheering. If I can't get there to the stadium directly, I will be definitely cheering at home and supporting the team. This is how we do it. But yeah, definitely, you are doing an awesome job there, and it's truly inspiring that you are building not only a program but actually something that works for the community, for the sport, and actually for the better. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.